good to connect with you, Aaron. Would love to hear more about what you've got going on over at CloverView AI, and I know you're managing multiple teams, crushing it over there. So,
Yes, sir.
one thing I haven't heard from you though, man, because I know we've known each other for a little bit here, but we were kind of already been in the industry, been in the space since then. I don't know how you actually got started in the whole high ticket sales thing, man. Talk to me.
Yeah. So if I think about how the whole thing started, I think this was back in 2017, 2018. I actually purchased one of those done for you drop shipping Amazon stores.
We all
So
started somewhere in there.
we all started somewhere. Didn't go well. It was 20K down the drain. But when I went through that process, and it'll kind of lead into like what I originally did with my first business, um, I was in a position where I was like, okay, do I use cash? And then someone was like, dude, why don't you use credit cards? Why don't you use 0% interest credit cards? And then obviously, if this thing can pay itself off within 12 months, which is what was being advertised, didn't happen. You can borrow for free. So I was like, that's a good idea. I have great credit. Never leveraged it for a business, just usually leveraged it to like buy nice things or go on a vacation and pay it off.
Mhm.
So that kind of changed my paradigm. So to make a long story short, I actually went through a funding process where I think it was like 60K and 0%, used 20 of that for the store and then had like 40K left over for like inventory and stuff like that. But as I went through that process with that company, I was just like, holy shit. Like they charged me, I think it was like 3,500 bucks and like they worked with me for like 2 weeks, got me 60K and I was like, damn, they just made 3,500. I'm actually super happy with the service. I had a good amount of knowledge on credit, so I was like, let me see if I can reverse engineer this and figure it out. So I probably tested it out on 4 or 5 friends over the course of a couple months just for free, just because they wanted to see if they could get, capital too. And that turned into the inception of my first offer, which was called Credit Funder, where I helped businesses get access to 0%. And I did that from 2018 to 2022 in the high ticket space. And I actually teamed up with a lot of those higher ticket 40, 50, 60K offers that basically needed somebody to come in and help like a lead get access to funding. And then about 6 to 9 months before I actually ended up like repositioning and shutting that down, that's when I actually got into coaching. So I started running an offer where I was showing people how to actually do that as a business model. And that's what led me from 2018 to 2022 until then I started working at Closers.io.
Awesome, man. What made you want to shut down Credit Funder?
So I think at that time I was just so green with business that I was just like overwhelmed. I was like trying to wear every single hat and I was like, I felt really solid as an expert in the credit space. But as a business owner, that's where, I was kind of struggling. I'd invested into, quite a bit of mentorships, scaling with systems with Ravi Abuvala was one. I was in their mastermind. And there was just parts of the process that I just could not nail, like specifically like marketing from a paid ad perspective. I had built up a pretty good referral network, so a lot of my business was all organic, was all referrals, and that was kind of keeping me in a good position. I was probably doing on good months 50K, most average months 20, 30, 40K, and like that was good because I was just a one-man show, no acquisition costs. Like I was doing well. But I just couldn't ever figure out how to really scale. And I tried ads for a couple times. I was just, again, I think I was at a point where I was just so new to the game that I was just making stupid mistakes. And I started just
Right.
getting burnt out of the industry. Obviously, with an industry like that, you are attracting people who need money, right? That are, I don't want to say broke, but they're like in a position where they don't have
Yeah.
liquid. So I just kind of got burnt out of that industry and I was like, okay, I don't want to do credit stuff anymore. I want to figure out a way if I can still make money remotely online like I had been. So oddly enough, I was like, what if I just be a salesperson? What if I just take calls and just do what I know, what I can do, which is sell. So I don't know if you know this, dude, but I actually bought RCA. Um,
Okay.
so I bought RCA, piffed, and one of the conditions that I made when I
You're the best
piffed
prospect.
was that I got an interview. So
You
that
said
was the
that was a
negoti
condition. That
that
was
was the
part of
condition.
like on the
That was
sales
my
call.
negotiation that if I will do this right now and I will piff as long as you give me an interview internally.
Who is the sales rep?
Aaron Wolverton,
And he made the deal, huh?
he made the deal. He got me on an interview with Brian Ostermiller. And it's funny because I talked with Brian a couple months ago and I was at SalesCon and I was like, dude, you don't realize like how that changed a lot of things for me. So I was talking to Brian. He's like, dude, we did that purely just to close the deal. He's like, I had no expectation of how that call was going to go. And he's like, dude, you came in and you actually crushed the fucking interview. And he's like, unfortunately, I just had no space on RCA at that time. So during that interview, I told him, I was like, dude, I would love to do B2B. Not that I have anything against B2C, but like I just felt like I was already talking to a lot of business owners at that time.
Mhm.
So I just felt like that was where I wanted to be. And
Mhm.
he knew where I was at with the business, and I told him I wanted to shut it down. So he was like, dude, just keep strong for 30 to 60 days, go through RCA, try to build some networks, and if we have a spot open, I'll call you. And then probably a month or two after I bought, he hits me up and he was like, "Hey, dude, do you have a quick 5 minutes to chat?" And I was all, "Yeah." And then I remember the call because I was like in a drive-through, and he was like, "I got good news and bad news. What do you want to hear first?" And I was like, "Hit me with the bad news." He's like, "Bad news is, dude, I don't have a spot for you at RCA. Good news is Mitchell Miles is hiring on STA, and I know you want to be on the B2B side." He's like, "But you're just gonna have to go through the interview process all over again. I don't have any like power on who he hires." And then went on a group interview, crushed that, did a one-on-one with Mitchell, and then joined STA as a closer.
Awesome, dude. So it sounds like you really did well in those interviews. What do you think led to one, Brian, liking you enough to call you back and offer you the other position, or I guess recommend you over there? And what do you think you did on that group interview with Mitchell to pass it?
Yeah, I think with the one-on-one with Brian and also like with the group interview, like the whole thing was like I was really selling myself and because that's what I wanted to. Like I wanted to be a part of a team again. I think like one of the things about being a business owner, it's like, dude, it's a solo sport, you know? Like I'm sure you and I both have experienced that. Like it gets a little lonely sometimes and like
Yeah.
not being around people that have like high standards and like A+ players and just being in an organization like that like can kind of get to you sometimes where you feel like you're just all
Hmm.
by yourself. So if I remember correctly, like we didn't talk a whole lot about my sales experience. It was really more just like who I was as like a person, as a human being. And I
Hmm.
think if I were to guess, like that's what caused him to be like, okay, like this guy's a good culture fit. So I would say if you're a rep listening to this, like, yes, you want to explain like your accolades and your milestones and like your experience, but like also like, are you a person that this sales manager is going to want on their team? Like, if I got stuck in an elevator with you for 2 hours, like, am I going to want to like kill myself or am I actually going to enjoy my time with you? And I think that's really important when you're making a first impression. I would say for the group interview, and if you are doing group interviews, usually how they're led is typically a person doesn't get called out to answer a question. So you want to be extremely aggressive. So I remember I think there was like 8 people in that group interview. Probably 80% of the questions were like free for all, and every single question, I was the first person to answer that question, whether I steamrolled the person or not. So I think just showing that level of aggression and like certainty and like leadership in a group setting, I think was probably one of the biggest reasons as to why I got the second interview, which was more of a one-on-one. So yeah, I would say those are probably some of the things that stood out to them.
So you land the role over with STA on the B2B side. How long were you closing over there?
A little over a year, maybe close to a year and a half.
Okay, so about a year and a half. And then how did you go from that to then managing sales teams?
Yeah. So I was there for, yeah, a little over a year, I think close to a year and a half. I left, and then I actually went into another opportunity working for publishing.com. I was there for about 2 months and great company, great offer. I think it was just a big kind of number one, it was like a big culture shift just from like what, you and I had worked in at Closers.io, and also a big offer shift. Like I went from talking to business owners, agency owners, consultants, coaches, talking high level problems to selling an offer. And again, no shade to the offer. It's just, how to make money online. So the conversations were a
Hmm.
lot different and the people I was talking to are a lot different. A lot of those people, unfortunately, at least the people that I was talking to were just not in a good position in life. And I just felt like I was losing a little bit of that sharpness that I had when I was at Closers, like solving high level business problems. So I wasn't there very long. Like I kind of was like, fuck, I think I made the wrong decision. You know what I mean? Good income opportunity, good, just everything was good. It was just like I really didn't align as much with the offer as I thought I would. During that time, I had just left Closers, and a lot of the people that I had previously sold and enrolled knew that I left. And just some of those conversations started happening where it's like, hey, we heard you left. Like, what are you up to? Have you thought about leading a team? Do you want to lead our team? And that kind of segued into finding my first client to cover my bases where I was like, okay, like I can pay my bills, taking a huge pay cut, knowing that I'm going to buy back a lot of my time, get a lot of that experience, and then here we are.
Hmm. I can see kind of the consistency there where you don't really like speaking or I guess having those kinds of conversations where it's more helping people get out of a certain financial situation. You kind of like enjoy having conversations with more higher level entrepreneurs, higher level, I guess,
Yeah.
more expensive stuff where people
Yes.
where I guess the conversation is more about the logistics of what are we solving here rather than the emotional sale of we're
Getting to a
gonna
goal.
get you out of poverty or something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's funny. I never thought about that. But yeah, if I think about why I shut my business down and maybe why I wasn't super aligned with that offer, it was like, yeah, I just didn't feel like I was actually solving um like a big enough problem. You know what I mean? And again,
Mm,
there's nothing wrong with like a biz op offer or anything like that, getting people to make their first dollar online or their first
for
10K per
sure.
month. But I think for me personally, I was just a little past that point myself. So I wanted to kind of, again, solve more of those business problems. Um, and yeah, I think the sales management like just ended up being the perfect fit. It was like pretty
Hmm.
much what I was doing already at Closers, except doing it over the course of like several months to a year, or as long as I'm working with them versus like trying to solve a problem and find a silver bullet within an hour.
Hmm. And what kind of, I guess, outside of just being past it, what do you think led to you feeling that way or getting to that point, both in your credit business and, selling for publishing.com and maybe even a little bit of, I guess you were selling to those types of businesses at Closers, but those two offers specifically, what do you think led to that?
Led to me leaving.
Well, I guess led to you having that feeling of like, okay, I don't want to speak to these types of people anymore. I want to sell, you know, I want to solve bigger problems, that kind of
Yeah,
feeling.
that's a good question, man. I think it just comes from a place of like abundance where it's like I know that I can find the opportunities if I put my mind to it and if I outreach enough people and just have enough conversations. I mean, it's like I think one of the things that I've learned is like every conversation is almost kind of like a sales conversation. So it's like taking those same actions that you would if you are a full-time closer where it's like you're constantly nurturing, you're constantly doing follow-up, you're constantly doing outreaches, you're constantly having conversations, you're constantly putting yourself in a position that you are solving some sort of problem and you're providing some sort of value. I just didn't feel like I was doing that much with those other offers. At least to my liking. And I just knew that there were opportunities out there. I just had to go find them
Hmm.
and create the opportunity.
And switching from closing at multiple offers, closing for your own business, I'm assuming, well, I'll ask you at Credit Funder, you didn't have any closers or anything on the team, right? It was just kind of you selling it. You said you're a one man
I had
show.
two at one point.
Okay.
They were a little bit more like VA DM closers, but nothing to a point where it was like I was doing all the
Yeah.
actual
Like
Zoom
no
sales
face to
calls.
face Sam sales calls, nothing like that
Correct.
on the team. So that's a big switch then. I mean, bigger than a lot of people think. A lot of people seem to think that, if you can close deals, jumping into sales management is super, super simple. It's just
Right.
about knowing what I do and telling you what I do to make it happen. How did you handle that transition? How was that for you?
It was new, man. And I think one of the ways that I handled it immediately was like I immediately found a mentor. It's like as soon as I left publishing, and I knew I was going to start building my roster of sales management clients. I knew I was going to come up against problems that I probably didn't immediately have the answer for. I think a lot of what I've been able to do is mostly just through replication and duplication of like how I've been led, and I've been fortunate to like work for some really good teams. I mean, I don't think I had the typical high ticket sales kind of journey. It's like I worked for two eight-figure companies, right? Outside of like what I had my own business. And I feel
Hmm.
unfortunately not many people have that opportunity. So I'm very grateful for the people that I have worked under, the people I've worked for, and like their leadership style. So I think one of the things for myself is like I'm always kind of just observing and I'm always kind of like a sponge where it's like, okay, if I am in a position where I'm a closer and I have a great sales manager, I'm peeping everything that they're doing in terms of why they do what they do, how that actually has an impact on the team, and then kind of internalizing it to it's like, okay, I understand the method behind the madness as to why we do what we do and like why you lead the way you lead. So I think a lot of that came just from the experience of being around really, really good managers. And then when I transitioned and decided to do my own thing, I went and started working with, I mean, I'll give him a shout out here, Peyton Welch. And I've been working with Peyton for I don't know,
Nice.
a year, almost 2 years now.
Still working with them now?
Still working with him now. Just talked to him this morning.
How did your day shift? Going from closer, now managing teams. What does the day-to-day look like of a sales manager?
Currently or initially when I first started?
Let's start with initially, then we can talk about currently.
Yeah, initially when I first started, I just had one client. So like my time back was immense. You know what I mean? It's like going from, I don't know, taking 8 calls a day, hour each, doing follow-up, doing EODs, potentially working some of the weekends if I'm behind or need to catch up or want to get ahead, to then working that one offer. It was a big pivot because it's like, I had all my time back, and then it's like, okay, well, what do I do with this time? It's not like I'm like constantly like on calls, closing, moving into the next appointment. Now it's like that because I have multiple teams. But initially at that point, it was just like, okay, that offer, and I'm still with them. Ironically enough, it's a funding offer. So I was like kind of the perfect fit. I had the high ticket closing experience, coming from closers, but I also had the industry acumen of
Hmm.
being in that space before. So that offer was a lot of work in the very beginning because they were really starting off at zero. So like creating the entire sales process, trying to document every single step, and like looking back also at like some of the things that I wish I would have had when I joined some of these teams, like resources, SOPs, dashboards, all the little things where I'm like, if I would have had that in the very beginning, how much better could I have been, or how much better would have had impacted my income? So a lot of that was just kind of creating that from scratch, um, and just documenting and then training and getting, initially those two closers that I was first leading, and they're still on the team now. Like those are their first sales jobs. Both of them were account managers or CSMs or media buyers before. So it was a big hill to tackle, but we got to a point where we're consistent, and yeah, I mean those guys are still on the team with me, and that's my longest lasting client. It's ironically enough my first client.
How long or how many sales teams are you managing right now?
Currently, right now too.
And why two over just managing one?
I think once you get to a point where you have your regular cadence, and like I know that a lot of sales managers do things a little different. I tend to, granted, like I'm fractional, but I'm definitely damn near full time with both of these teams. And what I mean by that is like some sales managers and some sales team operate where they only meet like on a sales meeting like 2 or 3 times a week.
Hmm.
And I've worked with other agencies where we've had that same process, and I just did not see I think the impact of what it looks like when you have a daily sales meeting. So daily sales meeting, weekly one-on-ones with each rep. Um, but yeah, I think when you ask why only two and why not what more or just one.
Well, yeah, why not just one?
I think once you have a system and a process, and especially if you build that system and a process specifically for that offer, because every offer is a little different. I don't want to say it's like cruise control because it's not. You're always constantly putting out fires. You're constantly reviewing marketing systems, your sales process. You're obviously reviewing calls. But it gets to a point where you're like, okay, I have enough bandwidth and I have the grasp of this team to where it's like I have enough FaceTime with them. We have a daily meeting. We have weekly one-on-ones. And then you kind of start looking at your calendar and you're like, I have the ability to do this again and maybe again and maybe again. I think depending on how you structure your arrangement with an offer, you could probably manage 3 or 4 teams at once and still kind of like this full-time capacity. Granted, if you're doing things a lot more fractionally and you're only meeting with the team twice a week, then yeah, you could stack up quite a bit. For me, I find probably 3 or 4 teams is kind of like the perfect like fit. Whereas I know
Hmm.
obviously there's sales agencies out there that have much um, more accounts, but they probably also have other people on the team. They're maybe not meeting with the team as much, and they also have a different process or system than I do. So I think for me right now, two's been perfect. I think had I not obviously done a little bit with Call Review AI, and I know we'll talk about that, then I probably would have a
Hmm.
lot more bandwidth. But so yeah, that's kind of where my time split.
I want to talk a little bit about your process, starting from kind of just hiring, recruiting, all the way up to onboarding. So, when it comes to looking for a new rep, one, like how often are you kind of recruiting? Are you one of those managers who's like, every week I'm going to do at least one or two interviews just to keep the pipeline full, be ready to hire a rep as soon as, you know, I'm ready to bring someone on? Or do you kind of open the floodgates when you're ready? Like, what's your philosophy around recruiting and timing?
Yeah, I think it's changed, man. I think initially when I first started, It was the latter, where it was like always a reactive thing where it's like, okay, I need to fill some spots. Let me go out there and team up with a recruiter like yourself or work agency or whatever and start doing those interviews. I think probably over the last 6 months, I've realized I don't think that's actually the best option. I think the better option is to constantly just, again, like I said earlier, it's like you treat everything kind of like a sales call. It's like you constantly are prospecting. And whether it makes sense to bring them on right now, or maybe you have an opening in 3 months, it's just like building those relationships. So I would say it's changed. When I first started and I didn't really have as much experience kind of going through a lot of those interview processes and like building the
Hmm.
team, it was more reactive where it was like, okay, I need a rep. Let me go out there, start making some posts, have the owner make a post, maybe recruit or use a recruiter, use a third party agency. Now, I would say it's a little bit more of the opposite, where I'm open to having a lot of those conversations actively. Like, I'll probably have one or two conversations, whether it's in the DMs or just hopping on a phone call, just to keep that pipeline open. Again, just like how you would as a closer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that way, when the time does come and you are looking for somebody, it's like you already have a couple people that you have in mind and you can reach out to versus having to open the floodgates and then do like a 1 or 2 week sprint where you're doing nothing but interviews and it feels exhausting.
Yeah. Yeah. And so do you have like a specific cadence like, hey, every month I'm dedicated to doing X amount of interviews or anything like that? Or is it
No
kind of
specific
just
cadence, dude. It's more just like I just get connected with so many people on majority like Facebook, and
Mhm.
it's like I'm just open to having conversations. Like if you and I are going back and forth in the DMs and you're a closer and you and I are chatting, and if I have 30 minutes, like I'll just be like, dude, can you hop on a call right now? And I'll just shoot the shit with you for 30 minutes. It's not even a formal interview. It's just like I just want to get to know you as a person, as a human being. And again, kind of the big question that I like ask myself is like, are you somebody that I would enjoy working with?
Mhm.
And if that's the case, then cool. Maybe I'll set up a formal interview and like I'll be transparent. It's like, hey, dude, we're not hiring right now, but I'm always on the lookout for like good quality people. And I just did an interview with somebody last week. And we're not hiring, maybe for another month or two, but it's like I'm just building that pipeline so that way when the time does come, it's like, cool, I got my hot list. I got the people that I kind of want to bring onto the team. And if they're free, great. If they're not, maybe they're looking at moving into a different opportunity. Awesome. And worst case scenario, then I can always go out and prospect more.
And how does someone get on that list? Because obviously, if we're talking about especially Facebook, there's endless amount of reps looking for opportunities. If you made a post, you'd probably get flooded in 2 seconds. How can someone stand out, whether it's, I guess, in the DMs or when they connect with you in some way to get on that 30-minute shoot the shit conversation and get on your list or radar for when you're ready to where they're like the first person on your mind?
Yeah, I think that's a funny question, dude, because it's like if you think about how you would do it in like a regular sales aspect, like how are you showing up in that side too? And I think they directly correlate. So for me, like what I tend to respond to are people that are just being like genuine, just like I don't feel like I'm getting pitched.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like you're genuinely just trying to connect and you may be even asking for help. You're like, hey, like there's plenty of people that I have in my DMs that are like, dude, what can I do to get my first role? And it's like I'd much rather have a conversation like that where like I can hopefully provide some value than like you blowing me up a million times and cold DMing me and like there's no personalization in like the touch points. Like, so I don't, that's a good question because I haven't really identified like why I respond to some people and others. Because there's definitely some people that I don't respond to. And it's not out of like anything outside of like, dude, I'm just busy. But
Yeah.
there are some people that just like somehow catch my eye and I'm like, cool, yeah, let's have a chat.
And how do you respond to follow up? Because I know for me personally, when I was managing some teams, there are some guys that I interviewed just because they were persistent,
Mhm.
right? So for you, have you ever had that? How do you respond to, obviously, given if the message is a little bit personalized, they're not super spammy and, it's clearly not a copy paste message. How
Right.
do you respond to someone who's trying to, write a genuine message for you and then they're consistent with their follow up?
I think engaging like in like the other posts. So it's like, dude, just getting out of the DMs. So it's a lot. I think now that you're saying that, I think a lot of the people that I have responded to have maybe at one point commented on a post that I've made or liked a post. Like it's just outside the DMs too. You know what I mean? So it's like I think if you can kind of just hit again, just like how you would if like it was a lead. It's like, are you just constantly spamming someone in their inbox, or are you doing something to engage with the things that they're putting out into the world? And it's like,
Hmm.
cool, now I remember your name. I've seen you engage with some of my stuff, and you're in my inbox. It's a little bit of like that law of reciprocity where it's like, I feel like
Yeah.
I owe you a little something, and I should give you like at least a couple minutes just so that way we can connect. And I have no like skin in the game there. I'm just like, cool, you're a cool person. And there's been plenty of people that have hit me up, and then I'm like, dude, I can get you in touch with a recruiter, or hey, I know this offer hiring. And it's like, it's not even for my own selfish reasons. I'm just like, yeah, I'm happy to connect you with anybody that might be able to help you.
Hmm. And when you are in that like hiring mode, month and a half from now, you said you might be looking to bring on a rep. I've heard a lot about this from other sales managers, recruiters, business owners that this is like the number one thing for them. So I want to ask you, what importance do you put on the 1 minute video or the intro video?
Mhm. It's important. I think it sounds bad, but people will either greenlight you or completely just ghost you just based off of that video. And I think it's like, you only get one impression once, the first impression. So it's like if you can make that extremely, I don't know, catchy, like you got to be able to hook the person that you're speaking to. You know what I mean? You got to be able to reel them in. I don't really have like a piece of advice or a science to being able to do that. I think number one, like the basic stuff, it's like, dude, how are you like presenting yourself? Like, are you wearing like a fucking hoodie? Are you in like your bathroom? Are you like in this dark, creepy corner? Or like, if I'm looking at your loom that you're putting out, like I'm in my head, I'm like envisioning you being on my team taking a call that way.
Hmm.
So it's like, is that how you would do a sales call? And it's like, if that's not how you do one, then you should probably redo that video in a way where you're coming across like presentable.
Hmm.
Um, so it's like, yeah, some of that is just like your background. Obviously, right now I just moved. You can see my background's completely plain. I don't think it's a big thing, but it's like, yeah, I don't want to see like your bed and like dirty
Yeah.
laundry on the ground. You know what I mean? In terms of just like
Yeah.
what you're wearing, it's like, yeah, you should probably look a little business casual. You know what I mean? You're
Yeah.
trying to make some impressions. And then also like when you're in the video, it's like, number one, do I want to hang out with you? Like, would I have fun being stuck with you in an elevator? And also like, leading with some of your accolades, leading with your experience. Um, but doing so in a way where it still feels genuine. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And are you opposed to hiring a rep who, because obviously you working at closers, I'm sure you're familiar with reps who are just getting into the space, right?
Hmm.
So do you have strict rules like, hey, I'll only hire someone with 1 million plus cash collected? Or if someone has that energy of, hey, I could be stuck in an elevator with you for weeks on end, would you hire that person even if they had that energy without necessarily the track record or sales experience?
I think it depends on the offer. So if I am recruiting for more of like a B2B offer, then I want
Hmm.
someone who has at least some business acumen.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Some sort of basics on that. And it's like you don't have to have had your own offer before or anything like that, but like you're going to be solving complex problems. You have to know at least the fundamentals and the foundations of like our space, right? Versus like let's say I was hiring for an offer that was maybe a little bit more of like a how to make money online, probably not as big of a deal. You know what I mean? Then I'm going to look for someone who, yeah, maybe has a little bit of raw talent. Um, Again, it kind of depends, and I know I'm not giving you like a straight answer here because like I think every person's just like how they individually show up. I have taken risks though, where it's like, okay, yeah, like this person that I'm looking at has a lot more industry acumen and maybe have higher cash collected or worked at XYZ. But this other person that I'm gonna go with is a way better culture fit. And it's like they have all the right attributes from that perspective where it's like, I can train them on the sales side of things, but I can't teach you how to be a good person.
Hmm.
Like you got
Hmm.
that or you don't, you know what I mean? And like I think it
Yeah.
does depend on the offer because like what's the culture of the offer that you're recruiting for?
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. When you do have someone who sends that video in, gets on that interview, what's your philosophy when it comes to what you look for in a rep outside of, are they a culture fit?
Yeah. So, interpersonal skills, emotional intelligence, just like, can you operate as a high level, high standard human being? Am I gonna have to worry about you if you have a gap in your calendar that you're gonna go, fuck off for an hour and I don't know, go for a walk or,
Hmm.
whatever. It's like, how hungry and motivated are you? And I think some of that is based on experience. It's like, cool. It's like one of the questions that I do like to ask is like, hey, like if lead gen just kind of took a shit for a week, like what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like how hungry are you to start going out there and creating opportunity when we all know that there's contacts and leads in a CRM? It's like, granted, it is an inbound closing job, but like, are you going to be like, I'm sure you've heard this term, like a fat cat closer, and you're just simply just going to take like the inbounds that you have, or are you going to actually hustle and do what you need to do to still hit your projections? Assuming that obviously the offer is good, they have good marketing, they have an acquisition system that's predictable. It's like every offer that I've ever been a part of as a closer that are two eight-figure companies, like there's always off weeks in marketing. So
Hmm.
it's like I want to look at some of those skill sets on like what are you doing when you're not on a meeting and you don't have to face me face to face to where I know like you're still doing needle driving like activities without me asking. You know what I mean? So a lot of the questions that I will ask are about some of those um, attributes and traits more so than like, talk to me about like your last role and how much cash did you collect and all that. And it's like, well, some of that is a little subjective because there are closers out there that are great that unfortunately just haven't found a great offer to work for.
That gels with
And
them,
there's
yeah.
other closers out there that are kind of mediocre and they have great stats, but it's because they just worked for a great offer.
That's true. That's true. So, but we all, like most people know, show that you're a hard worker, show that you're willing to do X, Y, and Z. A lot of the traits we talked about. How does someone actually show that in the interview? Like, what do they say? What do they do in that interview that says, okay, I believe these traits about this person? Because obviously, I'm sure it's not enough to just say, hey, Aaron, I'm a hard worker. Aaron,
Yeah.
I'm this, I'm that. And you're like, oh, sweet. Because everyone says that stuff, right?
I want you to give me specifics. And like, I think one of the things that I like to ask is questions about a specific moment,
Hmm.
right? And I will frame it that way. I'm like, give me a specific moment. Think about a specific time. And it's like, hopefully you have one of those ready. And if you don't, and you start talking about it in a generalistic term, then I'm going to ask you again, do you have a specific example? And if you don't have an
Hmm.
example, then I know you're just making it up.
Story sell, right?
Yeah. So
Okay.
I would say, if you are going on an interview, like have some of those things in mind. You know what I mean? Like one of the questions that I like to ask is, give me a specific example of a deal that you feel like you should have closed, they were slated, and for whatever reason you didn't close. What happened and what was your takeaway? And I want a specific example. So if you can't think of one, and I'm sure like we've all closed before, we all have those people in the back of our mind where like, dude, I remember that one that just slipped through my crack, like the fingers of, or the cracks, like just slipped through my fingers. If you can't think of something specific and you're just talking about it in a vague, generic term, then I know that that's probably not you, dude.
Mm. Hmm. And last couple questions on this before I want to hear more about ColorView AI. The onboarding process, right? They get the job. What does onboarding look like on one of your teams?
Yeah. So I would say the first week is pretty intense. Like obviously you're gonna join all the meetings. You're gonna immerse yourself in like the culture. First day, really just kind of going over logistics. Here's the mission, vision, values of the company. Here's the culture. Here's the standard. Here's what you should look at. Consume this. Shoot me your takeaways. Obviously, we'll get them set up with all the tech stuff. And then that's kind of just like day one. And usually it's just like, cool, like, are you good? And then typically from day two to day five, I tend to do a really fast onboarding. I want to get people on their first call, hopefully by the end of the week. So if they onboard on Monday, I would love to have them have like two or three calls by Friday. Now that's going to be dependent on how quickly you're actually like getting the stuff. So first day is really just going over mission, vision, values, more company related stuff, and then usually the next 2 days is really just like immersing yourself in the process. I don't really care if you know how to like close a deal on HubSpot or close, like those are all the easy things. I want you to immerse yourself with like the actual calls. So typically what
Mm-hmm.
I'll do is I'll provide them usually around like 5 to 6 closed deals, some of them not closed, and then have them actually review all the other closers' calls, take notes, send me some feedback. We'll do mock role plays every day. And then really it's just me kind of getting a gauge on like, okay, how well do you sound? Do I feel comfortable putting, marketing dollars on your calendar? And then usually then it's like, cool. If they're good to go by Friday, then I'll put like two or three calls in their calendar and then usually keep them kind of half open for the next week and then kind of see from there. Ideally though, I
Mm-hmm.
want to see you close at least two or three people within your first 20 calls.
Mm-hmm. And outside of just like doing the things you list out, right? Like they're going through the trainings, they're listening to the calls, they sound good enough, they get on a call, they, close their first deal in that first week. What are some extra things that a rep could do in that first week, 2 weeks, first 30 days that you believe will have them ramp up super quickly, but then make you feel like, yeah, I made the right choice. This guy is or gal is awesome.
Yeah. So a couple things. I think number one is like how you're showing up to the meetings, right? Like the way I run my meetings is like usually in the very beginning, we start off with wins, right? Like pretty aggressively. So I'm also like kind of gauging like how well do you fit the culture of the team. Hopefully I made a good choice during the interview process to where I'm like, okay, you're going to be a good fit. So it's like how you're showing up in the meetings is a big thing. Like don't just sit off in the corner and just be like a little wallflower. Like participate, ask questions, like be involved. Like and I'm always open to seeing like how closers, like new ones give feedback to the existing closers. I think it's kind of funny when like it happens. You know what I mean?
Do you think they should, or should you think they should just be quiet when it comes to that side of
I think
things?
they should just make sure it's good.
Fair
Like don't
enough.
show your ass. Don't give feedback and then like it be completely bad. You know what I mean? Like that's not good. But I also don't want you to be scared, to make a mistake. So like overall, just like actively participating in like the sales meetings, like how
Hmm.
everyone else is. In terms of like what gives me a good temp check, number one, like you actually reaching out and asking me questions. I think one of the worst things that I see is like when you onboard somebody and like they have no questions. It's
Hmm.
kind of like doing an interview at the very end and they're like, cool, what questions do you have for me? And they're like, I don't have any.
Is
Like
there
it's kind
such
of a
thing
red
as too
flag.
many questions?
What's that?
Is there such thing as like being too high maintenance then and asking too many questions?
I think it depends on the questions. It's like if the questions are well documented on a SOP and it's like you're just being lazy and you're not looking, that's one thing. So yes, I would say to your point, it's like the level, the nuance of the question. But if you're already asking like high level questions and it's a lot of like situational things like, hey, I saw this happening on this call, just curious, like, what are your thoughts here? Or how would you approach this? And a lot of that is framed based on like the calls that they're reviewing. Then it's like, okay, well, number one, you just told me that you are reviewing the calls, which is good. And you're asking really good questions based off of the situation that this closer was going through with this prospect.
Hmm.
If you're asking me dumb questions on like, hey, where do I find this resource? And I've like clearly laid it out for you and I've went over where to find all the SOPs, then I'm like, are you just not looking or you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
So questions that showcase that they actually made an effort alone first before coming and asking you. So,
correct.
right. So if something's clearly documented or if they needed something technical like that, would you be upset if they asked you about it?
No,
If they said like, "Hey, I looked here and couldn't find it,"
absolutely not.
or would you just be upset if it's like, the first pin thing in the channel and they're like, "Hey, could you send me the doc?"
I if it was like the first pin thing in the channel, then I'd probably respond back with a question.
So
But if it's
effort.
something where it's like, dude, I looked and like I'm curious how this works and like
Yeah.
it's like an actual genuine high level question where it's like, yeah, it's not documented and it is a little bit more nuanced thing, then
Hmm.
that's a green flag for me. It's like, cool, you're going through the material, you're getting comfortable, you're getting onboarded, and like you're just hungry to learn more because you want to get better. Like that's a good sign to me.
So you got to see some kind of resourcefulness. When it comes to underperforming reps, so this person's on board. What, how lenient are you when it comes to, how long would you keep that person on board if they're not hitting KPI?
A new person or an
Brand
existing
new
person?
person.
Brand new person, I think it kind of depends because I'm going to dive into the calls and see like where they're at. It's like, why are they losing deals? You know what I mean? Are we just not having end of call leadership? Do we not know the offer well enough? Are we not speaking from like a level of like expert, a subject matter expert? Like, what are the reasons as to why your deals aren't closing? I think there could be a million. And it's like, if it's more of a skill set trait, it's just like, hey, I'm just going to teach you this specific way of doing this or process, then cool. Like, that's all good. Everyone came in through, I'm sure, a different sales coach or mentor at one point in time. And
Hmm.
I'm not one of those sales managers either that's like, you have to say this word track word for word or
Yeah.
else, you're not
Exactly
here.
how I
Like,
say it. Yeah.
I don't really like that approach. I know everyone kind of sells a little different. So I guess again, it kind of depends on like what's the problem that they're struggling with, right? And if I'm listening to the calls and I'm like, okay, like dude, you just got 10 calls that I don't even think our best closer like would have did anything differently, then it's like, cool, those are just the it's just the deck of cards that you got dealt. And but I can see
Hmm.
that you're getting close. if they're struggling for other reasons, like they're showing up late to the meetings, I have a conversation with them and they're not taking care of themselves. Like just like the basics, like you're not a high performer in general. Like you're not sleeping right, you're not eating right, you're not drinking water, you're not taking care of yourself, and you're just showing up like apathetic. It's like, well, dude, how people do some things is how they do everything, and that might be a little bit of like, okay, I'm gonna make a note of that, and I'm gonna keep that in mind, and I'm gonna highlight that to make sure and see how quickly do you actually resolve that.
And do you have like a three strikes you're out rule for someone that you are giving the same feedback to that's not fixing it?
Not like a three strikes rule, but I think I definitely want to see speed of implementation. Like some of the best reps that I've onboarded, it's like we literally have a one-on-one, and then I watch the call that you have like literally at the top of the hour, and you're literally implementing what we just went over. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? That is a great sign to me where it's like, okay, cool. Like you were listening, you care, and you're willing to adapt, change your process, get better, whatever. If someone's struggling with the same thing over and over and over and over again, then we're gonna have to have a different conversation about like what is actually going on.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you just choking at that moment? Do you forget? Are you just simply just not doing it because you don't want to? If so, why? Let's talk about it. And if that obviously becomes a common trend and it's directly resulting in you not being able to perform, then it's like, well, might not make sense for you to be here.
When you say common trend, I mean, I'm assuming there's obviously it depends on the situation for most, but is two times a common trend? Is five times a common trend? I'm sure there's a difference between letting someone make the same mistake 20 times versus four times, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I put like a direct like number value to it. It's more about like, how do I say this? It's like, dude, everyone makes mistakes. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I heard Mitchell Miles say this one time. He's like, high standards, high grace. You know what I mean? Where it's like, hey, we have high standards, but also like you're a human being, like you're gonna make mistakes and that's okay. So it depends on that specifically. It's like, what are you doing to actually implement it to make sure it doesn't happen again? Or are you simply just not doing it because, I don't know, you don't see it as valuable or you don't care? You know what I mean? So I think it's a little bit more of like the intent behind actually solving that and getting better. If, and like, here's the other side of it too. Like, I've had plenty of reps where I'm like, dude, I love you as a human being and as an individual. Like, I would hang out with you in an elevator if we were stuck for 2 hours, but you simply just can't sell. And it's like, this is a good move for me. And also, this is a great move for you because you're not making money. Those conversations suck because it's like, I love
Yeah.
you as a human being. It's just, this is not working out. And also, I'm looking at your paycheck and I'm like, you got to make money, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it comes from like, how well are they taking the feedback? How quickly did they implement? But what is also the, what does that conversation look like? You know what I mean? It's like
Mm-hmm.
I can handle somebody like making genuine honest mistakes. Like we all do that. And I'll try to come up with little ways that you won't make it again. I'm like, dude, put it on a sticky note and put it at the bottom of your computer if that's what it takes. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Put a sticky note on the bottom of your computer that I'm watching every single call if that's what it takes. Um, so, I don't think I've had many of those situations where it's like genuine mistake and then constant mistakes over and over and over and over again because we usually find a way of being able to anchor some sort of way for this person to remember or like get past whatever the
Mm-hmm.
limiting belief it is. I'll give you an example. Um, have you ever had a rep that's very uncomfortable about doing cash on hand and open wallet?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay, so that's an easy one, right? Where it's like you and I have done it so many times where it's like it's weird for people not to have that conversation, but there's
Mm-hmm.
people that I don't know, maybe it's just the sales process or whoever they got trained by, or maybe a lack thereof, where they're like, that feels icky. That feels gross. I don't want to ask people how much money they have, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like kind of trying to get to the core of like why that belief is there in the first place and like actually having a conversation about that so that way they can see that it is still coming from a place of service and it's not like a slimy sales tactic. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of times, I end up having those conversations about what's behind the reason as to why you have resistance and then trying to figure out a way of being able to, collaborate on how to get over that so that way you can actually make more money.
Mm-hmm. No, 100%. Well, dude, I mean, you're managing two sales teams. You also launched Call Review AI software platform. Tell me a little bit about Call Review AI. Where did that idea come from?
Yeah, so that came from me and my partner Jake Hare. We were working at a sales agency, Winnet Sales, working with Nick Elia. If you guys ever have an opportunity to work with Nick, Nick's awesome. And at that point, I think Jake and I were I don't know, managing somewhere around 7 teams in that pod. And I had some of my own accounts. Jake had some of his own accounts. So it's like, we're managing a roster of like 30, 40 people. It's a lot. There's no way I can review that many calls in a day. So part of that initially stemmed from just helping ourselves out, to be honest. I think it was last year in September, I went away for about a week and a half for my honeymoon. So fuck, I couldn't think of it. I was in Bali. So Jake was all by himself and, had to basically manage all these accounts on his own. So we had kind of chatted about that. And then he just like MacGyvered the most basic version of like a Slack automation to where it reviewed every call. And then when I came back, it's funny because as I was gone, I was thinking about that and I was like, we should actually do something with that idea. While I was gone, he put something into place. And yeah, that's how that idea came. So then once we started using it just internally, just for us, then we were like, well, maybe this could be something that could actually help the industry out.
Hmm. And I mean, how long have you guys been running that for?
So the idea came about September, October, and then I think we really like started taking it seriously at the beginning of the year. So I would say 6, 7 months.
And how does it review calls? I mean, obviously it uses AI, takes a look at them, but what's different from that as opposed to like throwing your call into ChatGPT or your transcript and saying, "Hey, was this good?"
Yeah, I think in a couple ways. Number one, it's completely automated. So I think a lot of sales managers that do use ChatGPT, it's a great tool, and obviously you can prompt it to your offer and to your liking. But it's still like a manual task that you have to do. Like copy the
Hmm.
transcript, put it in there, take a look at the reviews, and obviously like take the feedback in whatever format that ChatGPT is spitting it back out at. So I would say that one big thing is obviously happening automatically and happening for every call. In terms of how we do that, typically what we do is we just connect to your note taker. Just like how you have Fathom here, we'll connect to the Fathom note taker. It'll spit it through our process, and then we customize the prompt based on obviously your liking. So like your sales
Hmm.
style, your offer, your price point, your avatar, your lead quality, etc.
And
Um,
that's something you guys do, or
yeah, so we do that on the onboarding process. So I would say to onboard a client, typically about 1 to 2 weeks. I'd say 1 week would be pretty quick. Number one, to get all the tech set up, but then also just to have enough data come through for then us to have a conversation with the sales manager or the offer owner to make sure it's to their liking. Like, are the reviews accurate? Are you happy with the performance, the way that it's actually tracking and the grades that it's giving is like the attribution. So a lot of the onboarding is like white glove. It's all custom for every single person. And then we just try to implement it the best we can with the team. So typically we'll do a training call with the leadership team as well as the sales team. So that way we can show people how to actually use the tool, and get some bang for their buck there to help them obviously try to close some deals or find some sort of pain point or problem in their sales process to
Mhm.
where now they have a lens on it, they can see it happening all the time, and then they can do something about it.
And like what kind of feedback does it give? Like, yeah, how does it exactly review the calls and give feedback on them in what way?
Yeah. So two different ways. I would say the easiest way of explaining it, specifically for let's say a closer, as soon as the call is done, about 60 to 90 seconds after it's done, it'll spit back the review. And we grade every portion of the call. So we'll grade how well you did in the discovery, how well you identified the problem, how well you identified the person's goals. You get an objection grade. Did you ask about, support questions like is there a business partner or spouse, like all the kind of metrics of like a discovery, a pitch, all that. So that way, from a 1 through 5 scale, you can quickly take a look at the call and be like, okay, cool, I got a 4.5 on this call. It looks like I got a 3 though on the support score, and lo and behold, I had a spouse objection at the end. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So obviously, the objection that you get at the end directly correlates with what you lacked thereof in the discovery process. So we have a
Hmm.
number associated to that. Then it provides coaching. So we have kind of like two coaching tabs. We have one that's called the one thing. The one thing is if there was one thing that the closer could have did better, and that was the biggest needle driver to getting a deal closed, what would that be? That way it's very nuanced in terms of like, hey, here's the high level thing that you missed. And then we also have a coaching tab that's way more granular, and that really goes deep into kind of like a chronological order with timestamps of like, hey, you did this really, really well, or hey, here's an area of opportunity. When the prospect said XYZ, you responded ABC, or you didn't respond to that at all. You missed that. So we have like kind of high level overview coaching and then way more granular coaching. And then I would say the probably the most impactful part is since all the data goes to our database, we have a chat like AI function on the screen. So if you ever have a question that's not already there, like from a hard data set, all you simply have to do is ask the chat. And then it's like you have like a sales coach or a sales manager right there in your corner to where I could literally ask, hey, what did Ty miss in the discovery that directly led to him getting ABC objection? And what could he have done better to potentially avoid that? Or
Mm.
fix that.
That's cool, man. And
So,
I know you do an onboarding, so you get a lot of info from the business, and some of that is probably their sales style and stuff like that.
mhm.
There's a lot of different philosophies around how to sell, how to handle objections, how to do discovery. So how is that piece tailored? Like I guess if you were to say whose sales coaching does the AI follow?
Yeah. So we try to base it off of how the offer already operates. So when we do the onboarding, obviously we want to get access to the pitch, but then I also want to get access to some of the um, number one, some of the calls that have closed to see like how the top performers are currently doing it, but then also how the sales managers are conducting their meetings, or if the sales manager can provide us call reviews that they've done. Ideally, like let's say we were to work with you, like I want the AI to sound like Ty.
Hmm.
I don't want it to sound like Aaron or Jake or anybody else. So we try to do our best to have the reviews be as close to as if like the sales manager or the offer owner, whoever's in charge of the team, is actually giving the feedback.
So does it replace the need for a sales manager doing a call review?
No, no. I think it doesn't replace the need. It's really just more as a enablement tool to have eyes and visibility on 100% of the calls, right? Because the sales manager, they're still going to have meetings with the person. They're still going to have to coach the person. They're still going to have to get into the nuances of like this specific scenario. And like the AI can do a lot of that, but it's all written, right? It's not like verbalized. So like if I'm the sales manager and I can take a look at like, okay, here's where you're struggling, and here's obviously a common trait over the last month or 2 weeks as to what you're struggling with, I can directly take that into a one-on-one versus having to, number one, ask you what you think the problem is, or have to review a sample size of 3 or 4 calls that's going to take me 30 minutes to eat, 30 minutes to review
Hmm.
each call. It's like you already have the answer on what is actually going on. Now the sales manager can be a lot more productive and go directly towards that problem and fixing it versus trying to figure out how do I put this person back together.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, is there any other ways in which, a sales manager or a business owner leading a small team or even a big team can use ClarView AI to kind of like cut down a lot of their time and just make managing the team easier?
Yeah. So number one, like I told you about all the individual calls, what it does
Hmm.
though is it takes all those individual calls and then we have like a main homepage dashboard, which essentially shows every call that you've had and everything that the team's done. So that way, from a team perspective, I can identify, okay, here's where we're struggling. There's a common trend that we are not asking open wallet at the end of the call, which is causing us to not close deals or collect a lot less cash than we could. And then we also have another page where it's specific to each closer. So then I can take a look and it's like closer one and closer two. For whatever reason, this person continues to get I want to think about it objection versus this person always gets a fear-based objection. So it's like, okay, now I
Mm.
know that. Now I can figure out, well, what's going on with their specific process that's getting this person to get I want to think about it versus this person getting, you know, I'm nervous or I'm scared or I'm uncertain in the process.
Hmm. Well, that's solid, man. That's super, super helpful. The company itself, where's the future plans for it, man?
Yeah. So I think I had a call like 2 weeks ago with someone that's in the AI space, and they kind of changed a little bit of like the paradigm of what we thought. So I was telling you this before we started, like, actually hopping on the podcast, where it's like I think we're doing a good job of providing problem awareness on like, okay, hey, here are the things that your team's struggling with. Here's the commonalities. Here's the missed opportunities. Here's the strengths. I think what we could do a lot better of is actually providing some solutions. So I think
Mm.
right now we've left that up to the sales manager and the offer owner to take the data and then figure out how to implement that best with their team to make more money. So I would say future plans for us. One feature that we are working on right now, maybe Jake will get mad that I'm saying it out loud, but it's all good. We're working on the ability to actually give live coaching.
Mm.
So just like how you and I are on this Zoom right now, if this was, let's say, a sales call, instead of it, and like it would be its own app, like a desktop app, but the ability to actually provide live coaching, like on the call.
Like
So it's
while
like
the reps are on the sales call?
while the reps are on the sales call.
Interesting. You don't think that
That
would
way,
be
we're
distracting for a rep?
could be. So we'll see how it works. We'll have to test it internally for a bit, but we're still working on getting it fully set up. But I think part of where the paradigm kind of shifted for us after talking to this individual that's in the AI space is, doing more things in a proactive manner versus reactive,
Mm.
right? Like one of the things that we haven't done yet is like a role play bot,
Hmm.
right? And we have gotten a lot of people asking for it. And there are several companies out there that do role play bots. And I think that's a great way of being able to, test your skill set and work on maybe XYZ thing that you're not good at or you need to work on, etc. Like it's good practice. But I think the AI space will shift into actually being able to help you live in the moment versus post, right?
Hmm.
So there's some new features that we're trying to work on. Hopefully, where are we at in the quarter? Hopefully by towards the end of this quarter, that will be live to where again, like I don't want to just create a business that's just only solving or creating, highlighting problems, right? I was giving you an example earlier. It's like if I was doing sales management, but I'd never managed any teams and all I was doing every day was just audits.
Yeah.
It's like, cool,
Yeah.
here's your problem. Good luck.
Go figure it
Versus
out
like
now.
what I'm doing with sales management, where it's like, here's your problem. Here's exactly what we needed to fix it. Let's fix it. So I think that's probably some of the thing that shifted for us with call review recently, which is like, okay, we've done a good job identifying problems. We're not doing what we could do, actually solving those problems and providing solutions. So what if we figure out a way of doing both?
Hmm. 100%. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing how it grows, man. I know there's probably lots of areas that we could partner up and get something going with growing call review AI and making sure that it gets in as many teams as possible because it sounds like it's super, super helpful. Because I know one thing when I was managing teams, you just can't get every call sometimes. You can't listen to every call. And if you are, it becomes 8, 9 hour days of just straight call review. So
Yeah. And I mean, think
getting
about it for the manager. Jake and I did like a little survey where it's like, dude, even the best teams out there, these eight-figure companies, they're probably reviewing 10, 15, maybe 20% tops of all the calls that their teams take. So it's like, what is happening in the other 80% that just live in Fathom or Zoom or whatever recorder you're using that just don't ever get seen? And like, what are the data points? What's the attribution that we can pull from that that's actually going to help the team?
solid, solid stuff, solid stuff. Looking to see what happens with those future features that you guys drop. Where can people, find you, see updates from you? Where are you most active online, man?
I would say Facebook, dude. I feel like that's like very like boomer of us that like the high ticket space. I don't know what it is, man, about the high ticket space, specifically the sales space.
Facebook's the
Or
place.
it's like it's Facebook, dude. At least for all the sales managers, at least I would say, and
Yeah.
offer owners. Obviously, like yeah, Instagram. You can follow me on Instagram, Aaron Purcell underscore. But I would say I'm definitely most active on Facebook specifically.
Okay. Awesome. Well, it was good to have you. Good to chat.
Thanks for having me, man.
Lots of value you dropped, man. Lots of value bombs. I'm sure, people can learn a lot because I learned a lot about your process and, how you go about bringing on reps. And I'm excited to see where Call Review AI goes. Dude, would love to have you back another time and we could jump even more into the weeds and talk about some high level stuff for sales managers.
Let's do it. Happy to do so, man.
Awesome, man. Well, I will catch you on the next one.
Peace.